Hey guys, this is Upesh from bwom.com, and Xiaomi recently launched the Redmi Note 9 here in India. And you know what, don't get confused, the Redmi Note 9 Pro and the Pro Max arrived earlier this year. This Note is more towards the low end. I mean, unlike the past years where it started at 10K, this goes at 12K. So the big question is, should you be buying the Redmi Note 9 at 12,000 rupees? Well, I've been using this phone as my daily driver, and I think you should watch this video till the very end before you go ahead and buy the Redmi Note 9. So let's get started. Okay, so this is the new Redmi Note 9, and I was using it as my daily driver before the Note came along. And well, unlike Redmi Notes in the past, this one has given me mixed feelings. Starting off, when it comes to the looks, the phone has aesthetics that's very similar to the Note 9 Pro and the Pro Max, with a similar color scheme and the square camera module. Having said that, the Redmi Note 9 isn't as premium as the Pro or the Max. See, I'm not sure if you guys can tell from the shots, but the back here is glossy plastic that does get smudged pretty easily. Although, to be honest, I think this color and the finish makes the phone look fairly good for the price. I mean, yes, glass would have been nicer since the Redmi Note 8 had a glass back, but well, plastic is what you get here. On the front, you get the 6.53-inch FHD Plus IPS LCD display with Gorilla Glass 5 and a small punch hole on the left. Now, I think the display looks good. I mean, the bezels are very narrow and the colors are not the most accurate, but the display looks vibrant, so that's pretty good. However, there's a slight problem in the brightness. As you can see, indoors the display looks pretty good, no problems. Outdoors, the max brightness is a bit on the lower side. Here's the Note 9 versus the Note 9 Pro display in comparison outdoors. You can see the difference. As for HD playback on the display, the phone comes with the Widevine L1 license, and on Prime Video you can see the HD tag in videos as you can see here, so that's great. As for Netflix, no matter what I did, the app just did not open up for me. I always got this error. I tried Wi-Fi, mobile data, uninstalling, reinstalling, switching on and off my phone, but Netflix, yeah, it did not work on the Redmi Note 9. It's probably a bug, but it's not good. Anyway, coming back to the design, when it comes to the in-hand feel, I did find the device a little hefty to use. I mean, it weighs around 200 grams, which isn't too bulky, but yes, I did feel like I was holding a bigger phone. Anyway, the fingerprint scanner is placed below the camera module, and at first I had trouble with it because it's placed a little higher, but I got used to it, so I don't think it's a problem. Apart from that, you get the usual buttons, the headphone jack, the USB-C port, the IR blaster on the top, which I really like, and there's the single speaker as well. Now, coming to the speaker performance, it's not the loudest, but it gets the job done. Plus, I like the fact that it's very clear, and that's good for a budget smartphone. Moving on to the big highlight of the phone, the hardware. The Redmi Note 9 comes with the MediaTek Helio G85 chipset with up to 6GB LPDDR4X RAM and up to 128GB eMMC 5.1 storage. Now, these specs look kind of usual, but the Redmi Note 9 is the first phone in India to pack in the new G85 chipset. So how does the G85 differ when compared to the G80 that the Realme Narzo 10 was packed with? Well, it's basically the same chipset with only one change. Yep, I have no idea what's going on here. As you can see, the G85 has two Cortex A75 cores that go up to 2.0 GHz and 6 Cortex A55 cores that go up to 1.8 GHz, identical to the G80. The GPU is also the same Mali G52 MC2, but the difference lies in the clock speed. The GPU on the G85 can go up to 1000 MHz, while the same GPU can hit 950 MHz on the G80. That's a very small difference. Now, this makes me wonder, why did MediaTek launch the G85? Maybe Xiaomi wanted to launch the Redmi Note 9 with a new chipset to differentiate, and MediaTek just bumped up the GPU clock speed a bit and gave the G80 a new name. Wow. Anyway, the benchmarks show just that. The G85's Geekbench scores are very similar to the G80's. Now, compared to the G90T, which is powering the new Realme 6i, the G85 is far behind. Same is the case with the 720G. So the Helio G85 is basically the G80, and it's not really a big deal. Coming to the real world performance, the phone handles day-to-day tasks with ease. I did not encounter any major issues or anything with app loading or multitasking, but yes, there were a few bugs. Like the Netflix one I already showed you earlier, and yes, this. The apps in the dock just disappear a lot of times. It's probably MIUI's fault, or the fact that it's not optimized very well for this chipset, but it's something you should know. Moving on to gaming, I know you want to know how does PUBG run on this phone. Well, I'd say not very well. See, the phone defaults to balanced and medium graphics settings, but first I switched it up to HD and high to see how well the game runs. And well, it does not run very well on HD and high. It's virtually unplayable because of all the lag. Next up, I switched to smooth and ultra, and at that I think the gameplay was a little better, but it was still very choppy, and I noticed a lot of lag when driving or shooting, so I switched to smooth and medium. And at that setting, it was kind of playable, but again, it wasn't the smoothest experience. It's a bit surprising because MediaTek, as you can see, markets the G85 as a gaming chipset, and that is kind of a false advertisement. This isn't exactly for gaming. Anyway, the phone comes with MIUI 11, and I like the fact that there are no banned apps here, including Mi Community, Hello. I mean, these are the pre-installed apps on the phone. However, the Cleaner app powered by CleanMaster is still here. I mean, when we made the Poco M2 Pro video, the Cleaner app issue kind of blew up, everyone covered it. So I was hoping Xiaomi would fix it in its next phone, but it's still here. Next up, let's talk cameras. So the Redmi Note 9 has a quad camera setup featuring the 48 megapixel Samsung GM1 sensor, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle lens, a 2 megapixel macro lens, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. Now I was hoping for great camera performance like the Redmi Note 9 Pro, because the Note 9 Pro and the Note 9 have the 48 megapixel main camera, but quite surprisingly the performance here was mixed. I mean, good light, the phone at times takes very good shots with great details and good sharpness all around, but the problem is it's not very consistent. Just look at this photo, the details are all washed up and it's grainy. I know it was raining before, but I expected slightly better from the phone. The phone also does not handle tricky light situations very well, which is, I guess, fine because it's a budget phone. In low light too, the phone struggles in keeping the photos sharp, which is like every other budget phone. And I also noticed that it has troubles focusing, but once you do get focus, I think on a lot of occasions the camera does a decent enough job, so I'm okay with it. As for the ultra wide angle lens, I think it does a good job at preserving the color from the main camera, so it's decent. There's also a macro lens, and I like that it has autofocus. As for the photos, it's a hit and miss. This is a good photo, this is not. Now this is the show you pretty much every macro lens. On the video front, the phone has no 4K support, there's 1080p 30fps support only, so check out a video from the phone. Now I'm walking here casually and out of nowhere the camera just loses focus. You can also see the jitters and the video quality is kind of average, so yeah. When it comes to selfies, the phone has a 13 megapixel selfie camera which does a fine enough job at selfies because I noticed the details were fairly good and the color was mostly fine too. See, overall the cameras on the Redmi Note 9 are decent to okayish. I mean, they're definitely not as good as the Redmi Note 9 Pro, and that might be due to G85's ISP, I'm not sure, but that might be the case. In fact, I took a few comparison shots with the Narzo 10, which also has a 48 megapixel camera, and just look at it. The Narzo 10 has taken better photos in most daytime scenarios. They are more detailed and sharper. Lastly, there's the battery. It's a 5020 mAh battery, and this is an area where I have no mixed feelings. I was totally impressed with the battery performance. In my usage, the phone always lasted me for more than a day and almost a day and a half. I mean, as you can see from the screen on time screenshots here, I always got a screen on time of 7.5 hours, 8 hours too, so the battery performance here is pretty awesome. As for the charging, there's a bit of a confusion. So the phone comes with a 22.5 watt fast charger, but the phone is actually logged at 18 watt fast charging. So even this 22 watt charger charges the phone at 18 watts. Now Xiaomi has confirmed that they'll be unlocking 22 watt charging with a software update. So that's good news at least. As for the charging speed, the 22.5 watt charger takes around 2 hours to charge the phone from 10 to 100%. I also tried the 18 watt charger you get with the Redmi Note 9 Pro to charge the Note 9. And it too took 2 hours, so yes, this 22 watt charger is charging the phone at 18 watts. Anyway, the phone has another interesting charging feature. It supports 9 watt reverse charging from its USB-C port. So you can use the phone as a power bank. I guess it's a handy feature. So the Redmi Note 9 starts at 11,999, and at that price, I think it's tough for me to recommend this phone. And I think the biggest issue here is the MediaTek Helio G85 chipset. I mean, clearly the G85 isn't a great chipset for intensive games like PUBG Mobile. And in my experience, MIUI and even the camera of the Redmi Note 9 aren't very optimized for the G85, and thus the average performance. See, the Redmi Note 9 is not a bad budget smartphone, but the G85 is kind of what's breaking the deal here. So if you ask me, I'd honestly ask you to spend 2,000 more and instead of this, get the Redmi Note 9 Pro or the Poco M2 Pro, which are better than the Note 9 in almost every single aspect. If you can't spend 2K more, take a look at the Realme 6i, which has got the G90T, which is actually a gaming-centric chipset. Either ways, the conclusion is look for other options. So that was our review of the Redmi Note 9, and if you still have any questions around the phone, its performance, its camera performance, anything, just comment down below and I'll make sure to answer them. Also give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and make sure to share it with your friends who are considering buying the Redmi Note 9. Lastly, subscribe to our channel for more amazing tech videos. But that's me signing off. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.